21st. It is obvious our beloved and highly respected mayor is not here today. I'm sitting and standing in her stead and not very prepared at this time because all my stuff is upstairs. But first on the agenda is the report of the city manager. City Manager Cook.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everybody. In a minute, I'm gonna jump right to informal reports, but before that, I think Councilmember Crane wants to make an introduction.
Yeah, thanks, David. I just want to introduce, I have a constituent here, Matthew O'Brien, that's a junior at Fort Worth Country Day, and he's been shadowing because he may want to get into this public policy realm someday. So we'll see if he if he's convinced one way or another. But I just want to welcome him here today. Thanks.
Welcome.
Welcome.
Did you tell him he had to stay all day? Yes. All right,
Does he really?
all right.
Thank you.
Okay, then we're gonna jump right into informal reports. The first informal report is on the 2023 election information and outreach. And Michelle Good is available if there are any questions. Moving on, second informal report is the Amber Alert Network, and Robert Aldridge is available if there are any questions. There's people looking at you walking up.
Well,
That's
There wasn't, but since he was
He's
walking
walking
up,
up.
I
Go
think I
for
can
it.
find a couple.
I got 3 in a
maybe.
row.
Yeah.
yeah.
Quick question, does the same work for the silver alert as well?
So the criteria is just a little bit different, but yes, we still go through DPS, and it's at 65 or older. But yes, they got to prove that, there's a danger to them in order to get that alert out.
Okay, and just help me reconcile, because I know we get the alerts or the emails
Sure.
through the PD notification system that says it's a missing elderly or child. And so I guess at that point, we haven't made the determination as to whether, like, when we get those,
Correct.
don't
So
necessarily.
you get the initial call that we get, which is we're going out there to determine what are the circumstances why this person is missing, and we're trying to wrap our head around it. If it rises to the level of maybe an Amber Alert or a Silver Alert, then we call our major case unit out there because they're the ones that give the notifications to DPS.
Okay, and do we have a target time frame when we try to do that?
We
or
try
is
and
it
exhaust all of our
situational?
leads, so we try and contact the friends of the family, and we try and contact any other locations that they normally, go to and visit. And so we run down those leads first. Sometimes they can take 30 minutes, other times they can take a couple of hours. But we try and do our due diligence before we pull that, that alert out there.
Thank you, I really appreciate that.
You bet.
Okay, stay there.
I don't have any.
I'm not going
I
anywhere.
got
The
nothing.
next informal report is on criminal offenses occurring at dollar stores.
Oh, yeah. I think that was mine.
What would you like to know?
I would like to know what you're finding out. And the reason why I asked for this months ago is because, for whatever reason, even in Dallas, it made news that these seem to attract the criminal element.
Yes.
And it really gets bad during the holidays, which we're past now. But what did you learn? What did you
So out of the dollar stores, we have about 72 dollar store locations. That's Dollar General, Dollar Tree, and Family Dollar. And those are the stores that we primarily looked at. You have some other mom and pop stores that might have a dollar connotation, but they were pretty small and insignificant. Out of those 72 locations, we had approximately 452 crimes that occurred at those locations. To put that into context, we had 53,000 reported crimes. So there's, if you really kind of look at that in that context, there wasn't a whole lot of crimes at the dollar store. And whenever you're talking about violent offenses, there were 29 total violent offenses at these 72 stores. Out of those 29 violent offenses, 11 of the robberies were what we call shoplifting gone bad. So somebody shoplifted an item, a clerk tries to grab them, or they get pushed down in the course of a theft. It's classified as a robbery. So if you take that out, basically we had about 18 violent crime offenses at the dollar stores. So, not really a high volume of violent crime that have occurred here. Most of it was property crimes, burglaries, thefts, things of that nature.
I like the way you use the term burglary gone bad or whatever, because in the case that brought this to my attention, you had 2 women working night shift. Somebody was shoplifting, they tried to apprehend, and he took on the older woman. And they are not allowed to bring any type of weapon on site like most employers will not allow. Do we have any type of contracts with those types of convenience stores where we provide, cops provide private security?
So if they would like, if they want to reach out and have security, we have no problem providing security, but the majority of these stores have not asked for our assistance in that arena.
Okay, okay, thank you.
Absolutely.
All right, the next one is noise ordinance issues, use of decibel meters, and muffler enforcement.
Got nothing, thank you.
No?
You good? Okay. Next informal report is on our competitive pay plan update, and Deanna Giordano is available if there are any questions.
No
All right.
questions, David, but I'd like to get, just for the viewing public's purpose, hear a little bit about that.
Deanna?
Okay, so Deanna Giordano, Director of Human Resources. Just kind of what this IR reports is that we constantly look at our pay competitiveness in the metro area and amongst Texas cities. We're currently in the middle of a market study where we look at about 150 of our 500 job classifications to look at how we compare in terms of pay with those other area cities, as well as private sector pay data. And we also look at like jobs where their educational requirements and experience are similar in nature to make sure that we're paying employees competitively. In addition to that, we also look at just the total compensation. And so for employees that join the city of Fort Worth, not only do they have the base pay package that we extend, but we also extend benefits around benefit subsidies where the city contributes to their healthcare plan. We have pension contributions that are in upwards of 26 to 27%, depending on their career field of choice. And so we also look at those factors as well. In addition, this IR covered kind of the living wage for individuals that live and reside in the area of Fort Worth. And it appears that our living wage needs for those that reside in Fort Worth in comparison to what we pay on average is adequate for our employees. And again, we just continuously evaluate the pay to make sure that we don't fall behind in any particular area.
One question that I have for you. You mentioned that the living wage so far, and the study is still ongoing, and here later I'd like to know when that study is going to be completed, but adequate. To me, that doesn't really strike a note where I think that where we want to be, right, as a city. We need to be more than adequate. We need to be attractive in terms of attracting talent and retention. Are these two things in your mind as we go through this study?
Yes, those are
Okay.
things that we keep at the forefront to make sure that we are attracting talent, quality talent to the jobs that we have that are vacant, as well as retaining talent for individuals that have committed to the city of Fort Worth as an employer.
Okay, very good to hear. And when will that market study be done?
We're anticipated to have that completed in the spring of 2023, and part of that is so that we can implement any changes that we foresee for the fiscal year 24 budget.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Next up is the citywide aquatic master plan update, and Dave Lewis is available if there are any questions. All right. Next informal report is the monthly development activity report, and DJ Harrell is available if there are any questions.
I'd like for him to give an overview.
Where's DJ? It's not DJ. Come on. That's it.
And I want you to specifically include apartments, multifamily, as you shared with us, because last week, I see Mr. Hayes here, there were some comments made about the age of apartments in District 5, and I think your report covers some aspect of that, and as best you can.
Yes, ma'am. Council Mayor Pro Tem, wanted to go over this with you. So in our IR, we do isolate our multifamily and our detached multifamily, and I should have led with who I am. Sorry.
That's okay.
My name is Jennifer Roberts. I am one of the Assistant Directors in Development Services. I know I've spoken with many of you, but gosh, there's a lot of us. So wanted to remind you of that. So in our IR, we do isolate the detached multifamily and the multifamily out from our commercial development, which is where it typically is housed because of the type of development that it is. And we have historically always pulled out single family, so that's isolated as well. And then if you look through the information, it talks about how many permits we have. We compare month to month, and then that same month in the previous year. Now, attached to the IR, and I don't know if you have it in your packets, is our development activity report. which goes into greater detail about those numbers and actually pulls data back from even further, so from 2021, 2022, and then we're counting through 2023. I don't have with me today information on the age of those multifamily residences, and we can pull that information for you if that's what you would like.
Can you talk about how many apartments have been permitted or built in, say, the past 10 years? Do you show that?
No, ma'am, we don't have that information readily.
I'd like to get a report,
Yes, ma'am, we can pull that for you.
okay, because I'll be sharing that with my current constituents as well as my future constituents.
Mayor Pro Tem,
Go for it.
just to clarify, are you asking staff to provide it per council district?
If
We can do
you
that.
want to, you can.
Okay, I think that'd be helpful. I
District
like your
2 wants
idea.
it too?
Yeah,
We'll do it for
District
everyone.
4,
It'll be a
okay.
party.
like your idea.
Everybody?
Yeah.
And future districts as well as what I'm hearing around the table. When you take a look at our Development Services Department getting the attention of the Dallas Business Journal, we've got something going on here. And I don't think we're void of multifamily being built, but we need to be able to define that. And so that type of report will be helpful to all of us.
Okay.
Thank you, Mayor.
So divided up by current council districts and future council
Exactly.
districts. Yes, ma'am.
Now, I said the past 10 years. Is that okay with everybody? Do you want to go? I think 10 years is fine for me. Okay.
Going back further than that, just for your information, is more challenging for us because of our computerized system. So Acela only goes back to a certain period. So once we start to get really ancient, then we have to start digging through paper.
So 10's
So-
okay?
So 10 is okay, yes, ma'am.
We'll do that. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Thank you. The next informal report is on procedures relating to financial due diligence performed during the zoning process. And Eric Flatiger is available if there are any questions.
I got a couple questions, Eric. Thanks. I appreciate you putting this together and the discussions that we had around this, because I know it was kind of an esoteric ask at first. Can you briefly describe, because I don't think in here it talks about how no other city has done it, but can you talk about some of the cities that we know are doing some innovative analysis around the financial impacts to zoning or development changes and how we might learn from them?
Sure. Well, I'll share one of our neighbors, actually. City of Denton, we've had some discussions with. They have hired a consultant to work on a fiscal impact analysis tool. So they're looking at sort of a computer system approach. And that was really instigated by the city council in that location. They had read and had taken to heart a lot of the material in the Strong Towns, Chuck Marone's books and so forth. And they really recognized that they wanted to really be able to understand what the financial impact, long-term impact on the city was of development of different types, different locations. All development doesn't pay for itself the same way or the same amount, and they wanted to really dig to the bottom of that. So that is the local example that we look to, and we were teeing up to have more conversations with them in terms of how that process is going. Have they completed it? Have they implemented its use? And we hope to learn from them.
And will that be part of the RFP that we're putting out?
So it wouldn't be directly
not them,
tied,
yeah,
but
right.
yes, it would be, again, we would be trying to learn from their experience and what they've learned, and do some additional research as well. Thank you.
Oh, I wouldn't leave if I were you.
Yeah, I'd stay right there, Eric. The next informal report is on the proposed 2023 comprehensive plan update. And Eric is available if there are any questions.
Before you start, Eric, and you will start because I'm going to ask you to talk.
Okay.
I expressed to city staff yesterday, I am uncomfortable making a decision on an area that does not yet have a council member. And so I don't know how we isolate or handle that, but I do believe areas, especially the two new council districts, need to have the benefit of public hearings, public engagement, what have you, to get the full flavor. But I would like for you to go over this comprehensive plan. And you've seen, I think, the correspondence from McFarland.
Yes.
And so if you could talk about the plan overall, but also weigh in heavily on the environmental concerns from an environmental justice perspective.
Well, I'd be happy to. Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. So we update the comprehensive plan every year. This is an annual event, and we're gearing up for bringing it to a public hearing before the city council on March 21st. So we're almost there. What you have before you now is the informal report that essentially goes over some of the modifications that are being proposed for the comprehensive plan. That includes future land use map changes. Future land use map is the city's long-range 20-year plan for the use of its land. And so it identifies different types of land use, residential, multifamily, commercial, industrial, and so forth. And it actually maps those out in a color-coded fashion.
Do
So
you have the PowerPoint?
I do not have the PowerPoint today. You have a PowerPoint
Can you put it on
attached.
it's on the website, right?
It is. It
For-
is.
For the sake of the public and the people I know who are here for environmental concerns, can you state how they can get to that map on the website?
Sure. You essentially going directly to the city's website. At the top banner across the top of the home page, there is there's departments, and there's a drop-down box for that. You can go to planning and click on that. That'll pull up a page that includes the comprehensive plan, so there will be a button for that. You click on that, it'll take you to the adopted current plan as well as the proposed plan for 2023 that'll be coming to council at that time. And I will share that at the City Plan Commission hearing, we had a couple of representatives from the Echo Heights neighborhood that attended, and they shared their concerns, and that had to do with the industrial growth center and the industrial land uses that are neighboring that community. And I shared with them that the industrial growth center designation at that location had been there since 2000 when the sort of first modern comprehensive plan was created for Fort Worth. And that there's been some modifications over time to some of the boundaries, some relatively small adjustments. And the most of the ones that are adjacent to Echo Heights have been primarily the same since 2010, with a couple of adjustments that went to light industrial land uses. And many of those kinds of changes occur based on zoning cases that come forward that are approved by council. When that occurs, if it's in a site that has a future land use designation that is inconsistent, but council has approved that zone change, we will go and make that adjustment in the comprehensive plan to retain the consistency between the city's long-range plan, which is comprehensive plan, and the zoning map and the zoning ordinance itself.
I'll tell you, I'll let you complete your report here or overview, and then I'll give you what I perceive to be the position of those impacted by industry.
Okay, so what we're doing right now is we're making modifications. We've shared those with you in the informal report, and we will be coming to council March 21st for a public hearing. This past year, we have made relatively minor adjustments to the comprehensive plan, and that is because over the past 3 years, we've really recreated the plan in a lot of different ways. So a lot of new information, a lot of new data, a lot of new maps and policy discussions and so forth included in that. So it's just a minor modification this past time. We will actually do the same thing again for the 2024 plan. So we will be coming back to you a year from now with the same request for minor modifications. And what we're going to be doing during that same time is we're going to be gearing up for a community-wide, city-wide, robust public engagement process. We're actually working on the scope of work right now to bring in some consultant help to help us do that, because that's an enormous exercise to do that citywide. So we'll be bringing the community in to find out what their current concerns are, to find out what their vision is of Fort Worth's future, so that we can begin to incorporate that into what will then become the 2025 comprehensive plan, which will have more significant changes than either the one that we're talking about today or the one that we'll be talking about 1 year from now.
Thank you. What my perception is, on behalf of community leaders who I've not spoken with in a formal format, but I would submit to you, their thoughts are just because this started in 2000 doesn't mean it has to continue, along this path. And at what point do our residential constituents have standing, have presence, have a voice to ensure that we do everything we can to protect them? And I think I've gone through toxic release inventory training when I was with TXU, so I'm familiar with what's in the air. The idea of community meetings is very important, but at what point do you see the community as a whole being able to impact and really make an impact on the report as city staff sees it right now?
Well, it's important to us to take advantage of opportunities to share information with the community about changes that are occurring and to hear from them about what their concerns are, what their goals are for the future. And we have done that, throughout the comprehensive plan process since the original creation of the 2000 plan. That was, again, a very robust engagement, but because of staff shortages to do that kind of engagement every year, we've taken advantage of opportunities we've had to do that. Just in the fall, for instance, we have a number of open houses to talk about the comprehensive plan and the future land use modifications that we were making. And so that's an example. We take advantage of other open house opportunities, like in the past, working with the budget and so forth. I think that for that really broad outreach, I think the scope of work that we're working on right now to bring in the consultant help to accomplish that is going to give a brand new opportunity to hear from a much broader range of community members. But having said that, I'd say that we're very happy to go out into neighborhood association meetings, other organizations that are interested in talking about the future and talking about their concerns and their interests for their neighborhood. We'd love to go out and have those conversations.
Any other comments, questions? My hat goes off to the people of Echo Heights who have actually formed a recognized environmental association. And I think that's the only one on the east side of Fort Worth, and so my hat goes off to them. Thank you for this information, and when you get ready for the big meetings outside, have some real clear language, because if you get a chance to go to a comprehensive plan community meeting, you may be more inclined to go if you see, and we're going to talk about environmental issues as well. So, thank you.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you. The next informal report is on the North Central Texas Council of Governments 2023 Regional Transportation Council's Legislative Program. Kelly Porter is available if there are any questions.
Yeah, I want to get a high level.
Oh, Kelly's not. Lauren is, though.
Good afternoon, Mayor Pro Tem and Council. Happy Mardi Gras, first of all. So this IR is about a resolution in support of the Regional Transportation Council's Texas Legislative Program. So the program includes 5 topic areas to focus on: the expansion of funding, opportunities and implementation tools, expansion of transportation options in the Texas Triangle, pursuit of innovation and technology, improving air quality, and enhancing safety. So this resolution broadly supports the focus areas with specific emphasis on high-speed rail and broadband components.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lauren. The next informal report is on the Human Relations Commission and membership, and Jeanette Goodall and Christina Brooks are available if there are any questions.
I have a couple, I just have one question for Christina, because if I'm reading this correct, is she, oh, thanks, Christina. So if I read this correctly, there are no vacancies, correct? And so were those filled in time? Because last work session, we talked about movies that mattered and how there were some vacancies. So have those been filled since then, or?
Yes, the mayor has made appointments. They haven't been finalized, but yes, those vacancies that do exist, we have appointments for them.
And those aren't listed in this, correct? In this IR, the new
Not
appointments?
itemized, no, ma'am.
Okay, great. Can you just email my office a list of those, please? When
We
have them all
can.
done?
We're just waiting on a couple applications from one of them.
Okay, thank you.
All righty. Next informal report is on Tarrant County 911 District Regionalization Feasibility Study. And Valerie Washington, Fernando Costa are available if there are any questions.
Just an overview of it, please.
All right.
Where we are.
Thank you, Valerie Washington and Fernando Costa here. We have been working with the Tarrant County 911 District. Their board has asked for the regional feasibility study just to look at the 34 different PSAPs in Tarrant County to see if there's any benefit to doing some regionalization efforts. They have hired a consulting firm. I want to say they're called Management Partners, to come in, and they've held through the meeting.
Mission Critical Partners.
Mission Critical, thank you, Fernando. They spent January and February holding stakeholder meetings with elected officials, the different PSAP staffs, trying to share their mission with looking at regionalization, and then sharing the timeline that the firm is going to use to give us their initial report.
Yeah, PSAP is a public safety answering point. There are 32 of them across Tarrant County, and the current system, by everyone's acknowledgement, is not sustainable. We're experiencing rapid population growth across the county, exceeding the capacity of staff to support all of these answering points. Technology has evolved greatly beyond what we currently have, and our current funding model is not adequate. And so for a whole host of reasons, it becomes obvious that this regionalization study makes sense. We'll be looking at it from the standpoint of technology, from the standpoint of funding and operations. And it happens to correlate in important ways with what we're doing within the city on our own 911 system. We need to coordinate and perhaps consolidate our functions in fire, police, MedStar. So all of these efforts are interrelated. We anticipate this regionalization study to be completed by June of this year, and we'll be providing the council with timely updates.
And I think it's important to note, too, that they really want, the Tarrant County 911 District wants to take a real partnership approach. They understand when you start talking regionalization, it makes some of the different PSAPs a little bit nervous. You want to hold on to what you own. So they're really trying to take a comprehensive, open approach to working with jurisdictions and trying to reach the best conclusions for efficiencies and for giving the best customer service to the residents that need the service.
Thank y'all for providing that update. It's a really important issue to residents in District 6, especially our leaders. It's something that comes up quite often. I appreciate all the work that we've done, over the past couple of years to really take a new, fresh look at how we, modernize our 911 system to be there when folks call. So thank y'all.
And I guess in closing, too, if I can just echo what Fernando mentioned as well, as part of our 911 efforts for this year, we're working closely with fire, police, and MedStar to get them located within the same facility. So we're really spending a lot of time figuring out what that looks like so we can make it happen.
I do have a couple questions. With what has recently happened with Austin, you guys seen that city council member was on the phone calling 911 for over 25 minutes because of what was happening with the car racing or turning street racing. And so this is starting to seem like we having an issue, just not here in Tarrant County or City of Fort Worth, but it's nationally. And so are we working in, I see this Tarrant County region, but are we working outside of the region to figure out how we can fix this issue? Because we,
Yes, we're looking at best practices across the country to learn what the best communities are doing to improve response times and provide more effective responses. Yes.
yeah, and I know we have duplications, and I think the last street racing was in District 5 about a year ago, and so we really want to make sure that does not happen here in the city of Fort Worth.
Street racing is a big issue here in Fort Worth. Perhaps not as dramatic as it was recently in Austin, but it's a big issue, and we intend to come back to the council in a few weeks with a report on what we're doing to address street racing.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The next informal report is an update on the developer selection for the Texas A&M Fort Worth campus. And Roger Venables is available if there are any questions.
Roger, could you just provide for the public a quick update on who we selected, why we selected them, and how excited we are about this particular project? Thank you.
You bet. Be happy to. Mayor Pro Tem, City Council members, this is an exciting day. We have, through a selection process, selected a developer, Edgemoor KDC team. I'll go a little bit about the process and how we got to this point. You know, in June of last year, we engaged the services of a consultant, U3 Advisors, who's been a part or an integral part of this project really since its inception. They helped us craft a request for proposal to go out and get that developer and their design team, their design construction teams. Everybody was going to be involved with the process to really find that best-in-class developer for this type of project. So we did that in September of last year. We went out with an RFP. They responded back in December of last year, and we've spent through a selection committee, which is really representatives from A&M, Tarrant County, the city, and some local experts that served on that selection committee. We're able to evaluate and interview a shortlisted team. There were 5 proposals that were submitted, all quality proposals, very thoughtful. Once after the interviews and careful deliberation, the selection committee members said their recommendation was Edgemoor KDC. You know, Edgemoor and KDC is a large developer. Edgemoor has been in this business for 20 years, and they really specialize in innovation hubs. Really what we're trying to accomplish in the southeast quadrant of downtown. They have a very strong team that accompanies them. They've got JLL for their real estate component. You've got Clark Byrne, 2 well-known construction firms that are teaming up on part of this project. We've got Akari Management, who's going to help us achieve and exceed those hub participation goals for the project. So they brought together a comprehensive team that the selection committee said, these are the people. These are the ones we want to work with. At this point in the process, we are starting tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock. We are going to start having those meetings and engage that developer to get in place the transaction documents that are necessary for them to facilitate the construction of this project. You're welcome.
Thank you, Roger. It is exciting. And the final informal report is an update on placing conduit in city streets. And Michael Owen is available if there are any questions.
I have one question, Dave.
All right. Michael, it's coming up.
Yes, sir. Yes, Michael. One question that I had, and you can add any other contextual information if you'd like. I know that staff's hope is to start, making these installations, in 2024, if funding is approved.
Right.
What are the ramifications if funding doesn't get approved? Where does that put us in terms of potential federal funding or being behind in other development activities that are coming to the city?
So what we looked at was, where should we install this conduit in support of things like broadband expansion. IT has a separate project that you all have heard of, public-private partnership where they're working. And so the goal here, it kind of split into two pieces. One being a master plan for fiber for the citywide, to identify where our needs are, to put that conduit in place. And then, getting that conduit in place early to save money. One of the most expensive part of laying and placing fiber is the conduit, the excavation and backfill. And so our intent would be to get out ahead of that as best possible. But those are really separate initiatives, but dependent. So we need to know where we need to put these. There will be some opportunities for us to put them in our projects, possibly funding it with the project if it makes sense. But not every linear project on an arterial will really have that opportunity. You wouldn't want the water department ratepayers to pay for a conduit to serve a different function. And so we need to look at that. So the ramifications of not getting that is basically we won't have that opportunity to get out ahead of some of those projects. If we're going to cut a street, we'd like to do that. The intent would most likely be to place it along with our street light and signal conduit in the same trench, have extra conduit for it. I don't really think there's anything tied to federal funding on that. I'm not aware of anything, but that's really what we would get. If we don't fund it, we would basically be delaying it until we were able to do that.
Understood. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. Mayor Pro Tem, that concludes my report.
Thank you, David, and thanks to all the staff participating with this. Do we have any questions regarding the M&C log for February 28th? None from council on that? Okay. We're going to skip and go to item number 4, which is a presentation on Beach Street Gateway Park area development. And just so you all know, Gateway Park is not in my district. I
Tried to give it to you.
twice. And I think giving us this presentation will be Eric Flatiger, and I'll let him identify guests that he has.
Eric Flatiger, Planning and Data Analytics Department Assistant Director. Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem and council members. We wanted to share with you today the results of the Urban Land Institute Technical Advisory or Technical Assistance Panel study for the Gateway Park area, including significant amount of property owned by the Frost Bowen family. They actually were co-sponsors with the city on this effort, and wanted to bring up David Leininger from Sasaki Associates. He is the chair of the Technical Assistance Panel. He'll walk us through that presentation.
Thank you, Eric. Mayor Pro Tem and members of the council, city staff, city manager, thank you very much. Again, my name is David Leininger. For years, I worked in the public sector. I was most recently the CFO at DART in Dallas. So I'm used to presenting, and usually the presenter who's not a member of staff gives his address and city. So mine is 424 Fall Creek in Richardson, Texas. Just to, but we're pleased to be here. The presentation we're going to go through, I'm going to truncate a little bit. It's 43 slides. I also learned from experience that you don't take a council through 43 slides, but I will point them all out. You all do have the copy of the presentation, and you have a report. And of course, all this information is available to you. A couple quick things about process. TAP is a technical advisory panel. Carl Yevaskinski is the chair of the TAP panel program and has been overseeing working with cities and private developers around the region in combination with the Urban Land Institute. So these are volunteer exercises. They're basically 3 days in duration. All the participants are volunteers. All of the participants have an obligation not to pursue any business with whomever the client is for that particular assignment for a minimum of a year, and all the time is donated. In this particular panel, I am serving and have served as the chair. I've done this about 12 times over the years. We had a very good panel cross-section of engineers, architects, investment bankers, construction personnel. So it was a nice comprehensive balance of technical resources who have got some direct familiarity with Fort Worth and also a lot of subject matter expertise. As Eric had said, this TAP was co-sponsored by Fort Worth on one hand and the family in the other. I'm going to speak to that a little bit more real quickly. Now, the reason that this came about is because of a problem that the owners experienced. The family had made a determination that they were ready to sell the property and discontinuing active involvement in any of this real estate. They had gotten an offer from a developer for essentially a warehouse distribution for the entirety of the asset. The asset is roughly 200 acres. About 160 acres of that is developable. It's contiguous to the Gateway Park area. There's floodplain on some of the balance and floodway, so not developable. And about, of the 160 acres, when it says 200 acres, actually, correction, there's 70 acres, or a little bit less, that's actually now been deeded over to Panther Island. So it's really nets down to 160, and then you take the floodplain out, and it's about 105 acres. It's really developable, and that's what this development group was interested in pursuing. When that was brought forward to the city and given broad public exposure, there was strong opposition. And the owners recognized that that was not a way forward. And that's not really the way they wanted to lead the city. This family's been involved at Fort Worth for years, decades. So they wanted to come up with a better solution than that. The city identified, working with the planning staff in particular, suggested a TAP process to assist them in framing some options that might be acceptable. And so that's how the TAP came about, and that's what we formed to do. This was done on November 9th. This slide presentation, by the way, is the same presentation that was prepared and delivered on the Friday after the Wednesday. So the panel puts this thing together. The panel met on Wednesday morning. We were briefed by both the city and the owners. We had a tour of the property. We interviewed about 30 people from the area, neighborhood residents, broader area residents, city staff, et cetera. The next day, we put together a series of assessments, facts, and so forth, and then came forward with a recommendation. We purposely did not recommend a particular solution. We specifically identified 5 options that might be considered by the developer working with the city. I can tell you that a couple things. Number one, I'm not going to take you all the way to the end to give you the answer. Of the 5, there were 2 development options that the ownership found were most appealing. One had to do with a sports-oriented destination attraction strategy. The other had to do with basically mixed-density residential. But I'm going to touch briefly on the others so you know what they are. All of them would work. Our focus as a TAP panel was to make sure that they were actually market-supported. So we were not presenting anything forward that really we didn't see a market opportunity for, with probably the exception on the sports activity. That takes a special combination of a talented developer and entrepreneur in combination with the city, in combination with the owners. And so that one is an induced demand strategy, not one that just naturally would come together. You can see, and given this location, I know you're all familiar with this area, the city, and you can see Beach Street there. There's a substantial amount of open space there, and this has been identified, this whole area, as being well suited for support in the open space strategy for the city. And I think the Trust for Public Land just worked with the city recently on looking at a variety of things that might be appropriate here. Now, we went through a process of identifying, basically what do people say they want and what do people say they won't want. I'm going to focus a little bit more on what they said they won't want. We talked to the city, we talked to residents and, as I say, area representatives. They all basically had some definite ideas about something that had sustainability, that was catalytic, and that would be compatible with the wishes of the local neighborhood. And so Frost Brothers, quality housing, gateway, transformative, these were things that were interesting them, but they also had an interest in making sure that they could exit the property. City Fort Worth had some specific ideas about stronger uses, adding more value, activating and animating this area. Neighborhood representatives very focused on some public safety considerations, connectivity to Gateway. They really can't get to Gateway. And also the improvements on beach itself, which does not have sidewalks, does not have, the consensus of the TAP members was it really needs to be rebuilt. And that's the one area that we would strongly recommend. Community representatives had a broader vision, and you see what they were saying there. There's a no thanks. The brothers were not interested in giving the property to the city. They do want to sell what's developable property at fair market value. The city was reluctant to really consider something. It was single family detached, felt that it really wasn't the best development use, the highest and best use for the community. The neighborhood representatives did not want any more heavy industrial. They were concerned about solving some of these crime issues that they perceived were there. And the community representatives really talked about additional low-income housing, and they were referencing in particular, I think, East Chase, some of the property a little further east, and they brought that into attention. So options considered, 5. And I should mention here that in putting these together, again, we were focusing on things that were ranged from what can they build, they being the owners, within the current zoning. What they were requesting, the brothers with the warehouse developer, was a rezoning. So we asked, well, what is the zoning and what could they do inside of the existing zoning? So that was base case. That's the way we referred to it. We looked at a mixed density residential strategy with some retail. We looked at a single family almost exclusively because the local neighborhood really wanted to emphasize wealth generation opportunities, the ability to actually stay in the neighborhood, buy homes, and actually build wealth. And they saw ownership as being central to their thinking. And then we looked at some park-oriented strategies and one that was pure open space where you just didn't develop it at all. It became public assets. This is the base case. This is basically what the current zoning permits. And you can see here that the blue, the water is down at the bottom. Industrial that is currently zoned industrial. Those two parcels in the brown, the beige down at the lower end. And then basically single family and duplex and single family in the brown going all the way up, as you can see. Eric and his team have looked at each one of these and then looked at the changes that would be required in the comp plan to actually accommodate them. Even if there was no zoning, there would be comp plan changes. So this is base case. And this was the work that Eric had put together to look at what the existing future land use plan is and then things that would have to be done to address that one. The next one is mixed use, trail adjacent, multifamily, retail. Now multifamily could be townhouse for sale, attached rental. It's a mix. It's not all rental. Now in this one, I want to point out the industrial on the top. Why in the world would there be industrial when the neighborhood said specifically no industrial? The reason for that is because there's a very interesting story around the truck parking that's up in that area on First. And there was a concern about putting a use adjacent to that would be inappropriate. Now it's an old landfill. There's an opportunity actually probably to mitigate and change the character of that, which would then reduce the need to really consider something like a flex tech or some kind of a light tech use there. But the reason that's there is because of the truck parking, which was not owned by the city, not owned by the brothers, the family, but we did recognize we needed to deal with it. Otherwise, you can see the rest of this, how this residential spreads out up and down, north and south from First. So that's, and I'll point out, 1,000 units, 15,000 square feet retail, not a lot, basically some neighborhood retail, 140,000 square foot of industrial, and that would be up there in the blue, 7 to 10 years absorption. Some of these projects you're going to see have absorptions go out 20, 30 years. And this again is the mapping that was done looking at that from a comp plan basis. The primary ownership oriented, that means basically all single family. It's this kind of product, so it's higher density, it's townhouse and duplex in the main to get a maximum amount that you can in there. About 14 dwelling units the acre, 900 units probably, 30 to 50 unit absorption per year, 20 to 30 year absorption. So a long time. It would take a long time under this strategy. As best we can determine for all of this to build out. This is what it looks like. By the way, this is compliments of Michael Bennett. He spent quite a bit of time sketching this over that day and a half. Michael, of course, is an area architect, a very prominent land planner. So that's what this looks like. And again, corresponding on the comp plan. The next one really talks about sports tourism. We know that you've been talking about sports tourism. You're considering some things, and you have in the past. You're considering something on the west side, and there definitely is a business that's emerging. And you, in earlier conversation today, I heard about the notice that you all are getting relative to the activity and business activity of Fort Worth. There was a very nice article about the amount of economic development around sports activities. You're well located for that. And so, again, it's destination retail. By the way, you think in terms of 200 to 300 mile radius draw when you start talking about this kind of a use. You're really drawing from a big region and pulling it into you. So highly animated, much more active, integrated with Gateway Park, really intending to basically make this a destination that would draw from all over the region and beyond. Lots of ball fields, indoor and outdoor facilities. I point out that on these ball fields that are on to your right, in the scheme, the lower portion, kind of in the middle, right now that's designated by Panther Island actually as an ecological preserve area. And so that probably can't happen as depicted. All of these things are subject to adjustment, of course. But this is the general idea. Strong, big concentration right there at 30 and Beach, hospitality, hotels, restaurants, and events. So big program that's described here. And you can get a sense then of the kind of structures and facilities that would be associated with that. 20+ fields, a lot of parking, a lot of things. The final one really is pure conservation. You take that whole area, pull it into a conservation easement, and don't develop it at all. I can tell you that that was not a preferred use associated with the neighborhood. That's not what they want. They really want more activation, more investment, better beach, those kinds of things. So real quickly, summing up what everybody wants and doesn't want, the owners want a orderly divestiture. They are prepared to move forward, move out. The three brothers we were talking to are all around 80 years old, plus or minus, and they recognize it's time for them to make these decisions. And they do want and expect a fair market compensation for their developable property. We all had identified, as I say, development scenarios, but we said, we can't pick one at this point because you've got to engage with the community, you've got to engage with city council and planning staff, and you've got to really see what fits and what seems to be most acceptable. The owners basically have come back and advised us, we like the mixed density residential, and we think that's a way forward. Our preference is the sports tourism strategy. We really think it's got the best catalytic effect, but it's also complicated. So they recognize that, you know, that could be aspirational, but it's the one that they really want to see and test, but they really don't want to spend too much time testing it, and if not, then they want to really look at the mixed density multifamily strategy. We commented about absorption times. You know, when you go over 15, 20 years, you're really getting into talking about futures that you really can't project. You all know from your own development experience, a lot's changed just in 10 years on this side of the marketplace. So going out 20 years, it's really hard to think that what the absorption patterns would be, but it's a long time and some of the infrastructure gets old and so forth. So you would really want to come up with a strategy where you're developing things simultaneously and finding a way to take this thing through faster. I've spent a lot of time talking to public bodies and the one I work for, and I know that talking about more money is never a pleasant communication. But in this instance, you have an investment, a public investment that's associated with something, beach in particular, that is a good candidate. It should be considered. It's been there for a long time, clearly needs to be improved. You've got $8 million in your bond program that you're already committing to Gateway, which is a nice coincidence of circumstances. Between Gateway and Panther Island and what you're doing there, you really have a combination of activities and investment that leverage a great opportunity. Windows open, windows close. Right now, your window is open, so we certainly would encourage you to jump through it if you can. And obviously, we think that our conversation was almost done, you know, inside of a bubble. So this has to be done in combination with the community and community engagement and staff. But we felt that the options that were identified were viable. And thank you very much, and I hope we got through this in a reasonably quick period of time and didn't force you. I didn't read off too many slides. Thank you again.
I want to thank you for the full presentation. When you think of Gateway Park, it is, in essence, our Central Park, when you look at the size of it. And I speak that so that this entire council can know, no matter which district it falls in, it really is the city's park, that this is a masterpiece in the making. And Eric, I've never had this type of conversation in such a public venue, so this is new to me, and I'm filling in as best I can. But the information provided is very thorough. You had me when you talked about working for DART. Gary Thomas is a dear friend of mine, and so
He was
I'm
my
sure you had
boss for a number of years.
yeah, you had a lot of fun spending all that money. They had all the transit money in the nation was going to DART at one time, still is. But
It was a good thing.
comments from the council. Eric, do you have any closing to that, or do you want us to go into comments and questions from the council?
Oh, I think we're ready to hear from you. This has been, you know, this has been something that the community's been engaged with. We have a few community members here that came here just to hear this presentation and hear your reaction to it. Some great options provided. The mixed use, you know, is one that certainly could move forward and certainly one that the neighborhood would support. And, you know, there are more discussions to be had and a lot of them at this table.
Well, I expect the conversation to be rather organic, but I do want to lean on Councilmember Blaylock initially, followed up by Councilmember Crane because of his professional background. And so, Alan, I know you met with Mr. Frost recently.
Yes, I did. Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. So I just want to thank the Frost family for helping fund this study and working with the community to come forward through this process with some really interesting and compelling stories for what could go there. And I have to say, I love both of the options that are at the top of the list. There's some challenges, and I look forward to continuing the process and the discussions and seeing what we can actually achieve there.
Michael, what does your real estate brain tell us?
Not much. No, I appreciate the work that's gone into it. I know this has been a long process to get to something, but I think anytime we can plan this out as a city instead of mishmash and get to it, it makes it better for everyone, some predictability of what's around. So I look forward to what the neighborhood and everything else wants to see come forward.
My only cautionary tale would be to make sure that we see this that we go ahead and change the zoning that needs to be changed to see this plan come to fruition. And that cautionary tale is West 7th, where we had, you know, big hopes and dreams for it being a lot of, you know, mixed use and high density residential and office space, and some things kind of came in to fill in those gaps. And so learn from our lessons there and try to make sure we're getting out ahead of that, and that the buildings aren't conducive to uses we don't want when we rezone those.
Good points. You have come in and mastered it very well as best you could. I think simply stated, you don't want to see a bunch of drunks hanging around the park.
Michael, your expertise.
Okay, going, gone. Any other commentary?
If I
Thank
could-
you.
Certainly, just one thing in
Absolutely.
closing that I should have mentioned earlier. The Frost family was very appreciative of staff involvement, and they were highly complimentary of the work the staff did to prepare the briefing materials and assist them in bringing this forward. So they're very appreciative of that.
As we are of you and your involvement and your engagement. Thank you very much. Thank you, Eric.
Thank you.
If I can catch up, let's see, next. Oh, we're going to talk about the teen court with my buddy Judge Danny Rogers. And Judge Rogers, I hope you'll start your presentation with an announcement about where you will be this Saturday. Yes, ma'am. Okay. And everybody take a note, because you may have a relative who needs to be with the judge this Saturday. Yes, yeah, we'll be in Woodhaven.
Good afternoon, Mayor Pro Tem and council members. Danny Rogers, Chief Judge. And I will begin at your direction. This Saturday at the Eugene McRae Community Center, we will be holding our first community court warrant forgiveness event of this calendar year. So if any of you happen to have, or you know anyone who has outstanding Fort Worth tickets, come see us. We'll be there from 9 until noon. We'll have 3 judges and incredible support staff there. This is just the first. Mr. Rumley's reaching out to each of you individually to determine where yours will be and what date it will be. So this Saturday, though, Eugene McRae Community Center, 9 o'clock to noon. Be there or send someone else there, okay?
And we're not fixing tickets, we're just.
No, ma'am. We're not fixing. We're helping them get on the right track
There you
with
go.
their tickets.
Okay. Thank
Got
you,
a
sir.
video, but I didn't bring it with me. But we're really good together.
I know we
you
are.
know.
I
Yeah,
know
we are. Again, thank you so much for the opportunity to share with you about a program that I am very proud of that our court has, and that's Teen Court. Making our presentation this afternoon is someone that I'm very proud of, and that is Michelle Sims. Michelle Sims came to us in 2021 and helped resurrect our Teen Court from the ravages of COVID. And she's going to share with you about Teen Court. She's taken charge of it and is our coordinator and works very well with it. So I'm going to stop talking and let Michelle talk.
Hi, excuse my voice. I'm overcoming a little bit of a cold. So my name is Michelle Sims. I'm the Teen Court Coordinator, as Judge Rogers says, and I'm just going to share a little bit about the program with you all, okay? So Teen Court is a voluntary program that allows young people 10 to 17 who are currently enrolled in school, or those 18 or 19 who are currently enrolled in high school, to resolve their tickets by performing community service hours and paying a nominal fee. The ultimate resolution of this, the program, is that their cases are dismissed. So some of the benefits of Teen Court, of course, the best one is that the offense is dismissed from their record. It also gives both the participants and those young people who volunteer with the program the opportunity to learn more about the judicial system. Additionally, it gives them the opportunity to work with people from many different backgrounds, ages, socioeconomic status, and helps them to understand the importance of civic engagement. So Teen Court was started in 1987 by the Junior League of Fort Worth. Junior League continues to support Teen Court through volunteers. We currently have 4 volunteers from the Junior League, and we get usually about 4 every cycle that they go through. Teen Court has Teen Court Inc., which is a 5013CB associated with which is in partnership with the city. The program is funded through private donations and grants. Teen court participants, in order to be enrolled in teen court, you must appear before the judge for your juvenile arraignment with your parent. You can ask for teen court. At that point, you will come upstairs to the teen court office and we will enroll you immediately and get you scheduled for a teen court hearing. In calendar year 2022, we had 53 youth volunteers from over 20 different schools. So youth have the opportunity to volunteer as teen attorneys, which requires a training, or they can volunteer as a juror, which does not require any training. And as you see, we had 400 volunteer hours last year from teens alone. Teen court community collaborations. I mentioned the teen attorney trainings. We've held them at local community centers. We had one at MOK, Hanley Meadowbrook, Riverside, and most recently Como Community Center. We also partner with the Boys and Girls Club Coming Up program to help the young people enrolled in those programs resolve their tickets. If they're eligible for teen court, then we can enroll them in teen court. If they're not eligible for that program, then we work to get them in an appropriate deferred program. It's not here on the slide, but I'd also like to mention that we've had 2 interns from Texas Wesleyan in the last couple of years, and our current part-time staff is one of our former interns from Texas Wesleyan. Adult volunteers. We had 47 adult volunteers during 2022. As you see, we've had volunteers from all different career backgrounds. We've had some private attorneys, assistant DAs, public defenders. We actually have some of our city attorneys that have been working with us recently, staying after work, helping our teams. For fiscal year 2022, this is, like Judge Rogers said, we were kind of restarting, getting the court back open. I was getting acclimated to the position, so these are our numbers for that time frame. This year, we're moving right along. As you can see, our success rate is a little lower, but we are at the beginning of the fiscal year. We have also implemented 30-day and 60-day reminders. We're sending emails and making phone calls. The parents and the youth are very receptive to that, so we're hopeful that our success rate will improve. And what we need, free parking for our volunteers. Our program starts at 5 o'clock, so our volunteers are required to pay the meters until they're free. So it's really difficult to ask people to volunteer their time and spend their money. Youth and adult volunteers, we always need volunteers. Anyone who's interested in volunteering with the program can visit the city's volunteer webpage, search Teen Court, and find out more information about the program or contact us directly. And monetary in-kind donations are always welcome to the Teen Court, Inc.
I have some quick questions.
Yes.
About, if you could go back to the what you need slide. One, I think parking should be easy. David Cook, we can make that happen.
Tags, give them door?
Yeah, I think that one
Mirror
should
tags?
be easy. If you can make a flyer for us to share via, many of us put out newsletters, district newsletters, and Facebook or Instagram or Twitter or whatever. Michael Crane has a TikTok. He dances. I'm just kidding. But if you could have those, if you could just provide us something to share to help, and maybe in that put what that entails, the time and, kind of what their options are. And then as far as monetary and in-kind donations, obviously monetary is money, but what type of in-kind donations do you think would be helpful to the organization?
So, things like any type of gift cards that we can give as incentives and rewards to our volunteers. We do have an annual volunteer appreciation dinner, so those things are helpful. I do like to give snacks to kids. That's always helpful. So anything like that, snacks, water, juices, candy, things like that. We're working with teenagers, so we know that they're always hungry. Anything that, as far as any type of office supplies, things of that nature. We do have the support of the city, but when we're doing our teen attorney training, it is nice to give kids things to take home with them and, to to help them when they're prepping for their cases and things of that nature.
If you'll put together a list too, when you send us that graphic, that would be helpful. And then also include the date of your appreciation dinner, so that helps us plan backwards on trying to get y'all some extras for the volunteers.
Great, thank you.
And your flyer, please work with our communications people. You don't have to go draw this up yourself. Our community engagement people can help you with that flyer. They have a template. Okay, yes, and make sure we all get that. Michelle Guth was in the audience. She's probably upstairs working on a flyer for me right now. So you're not alone in that. Any other comments, Councilmember Blaylock?
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. So I love the program, and it's fantastic. It's great. I wonder how we can get engagement further out of the city and up into the north, in the north end of District 4 and current District 7. Is there opportunity there, or is there enough in terms of citation work that could be referred to make it worthwhile?
Well, every person that appears for their arraignment docket for the juveniles, we always offer this. This is always an opportunity for them to do, regardless of where they live in the city. I hadn't thought about going up there, but we certainly could think about that and doing something. We can look at the zip codes and see if there's enough need up there. But yeah, we can certainly look at that. Sure.
Any other questions?
Michelle's got one more thing that she wants to share.
Please.
So I wanted you all to hear from a young lady who participated in the program, and then she returned to us to be a volunteer. So this is Kimberly. She's currently a senior at the Young Women's Leadership Academy. So she just wanted to share a little bit about what brought her to participate in Teen Court and why she returned as a volunteer.
Good afternoon, esteemed council. As Ms. Sims has stated, hi, my name is Kimberly Guerrero Rubalcaba. I'm currently a senior at Young Women's Leadership Academy. I participated in Teen Court last year when I received a ticket for no registration and driving on a restricted license. While participating in the program, I obtained my driver's license and I have not received a ticket since. I also created a youth volunteer recruitment flyer for the program in my graphic design class as a community service project. After completing the program, I returned as a volunteer juror. I enjoyed participating in Teen Court because it gave me the opportunity to be a juror for other teens like myself.
Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem, if I may, just William Rumley, Court Director, I just want to say, in a former life, I was a teen court coordinator in a city close to us, Hershey Hills, Bedford. So this is close to my heart. And so we have a great group here. Michelle's really brought out new ideas. There's more things going on. We were the original teen court in Texas. Fort Worth was the first teen court in the state of Texas. So just be aware of that. And so we have a long history of doing great things in this city. It is a voluntary program, so it's not for every individual. We have other opportunities and options. And so we do also want to make that known. And then just as far as looking at other locations, as we think about where we might hold, remember there's a lot of pieces. We've got volunteers, we've got staff and everything. So we can look at that, Mr. Blaylock, but we just want to make sure that it makes sense, and we have to make sure, consistency for both adults, teens and adults is important. But we'll look at all those things and see what would make sense in order to get as much participation from volunteers as well as participants.
And William, before you go, and for the sake of my Facebook Live audience, what is the purpose of Teen Court in Fort Worth?
Right, so there are two actual prongs of Teen Court. The first side is what we may think of related to giving teens an opportunity to resolve a citation and keep it off their record in a way that may not have as much impact financially. So one of the things that happens going through Teen Court, and we discussed this back when we were talking about curfew, is that let's say you have a fine on an offense anywhere from $200 to $500. Well, instead of that, you pay $20, and the judge can even waive that if they find like it's appropriate financially based on the circumstance of the individual. And then they do jury service and community service, so it's tying that back to the community, giving back to them individually through community service. So that's the first part with the individuals who are going through the program and learning about the judicial system in a non-threatening manner. The second
thing is for the volunteers and the community to get involved, and all the community hours get to give back and information. One of the things that you also need to know about our teen court is we're very competitive. So every year there's a teen court competition, and we are always at the top of that competition every year. So we'll make sure you all get that information as well, because that's one of the things they talk about when we have the banquet at the end of the year.
So we could go and support our
Yes,
teen
ma'am.
court team,
Yes, ma'am.
like Shark Tank or something like that?
Absolutely. We're Fort Worth. We always go in expecting to win.
Okay,
Absolutely.
yeah, I want to go, I want to be involved.
We're not doing it this year. We're still coming out of COVID on the competition.
okay.
But we're in all kinds of hopes to be able to pull it back next year.
Councilmember Beck?
Please consider me a resource when y'all move forward with
ma'am,
that.
we
I'd
will.
love to help the teen volunteers, particularly if it means we get bragging rights over
Absolutely.
our sister
Any
cities.
other city?
Absolutely, yes.
And in closing, what I will tell you, Michelle, is I want to connect you with the East Side Commander of the Police Department. In District 5, we're having an issue with numbers and numbers of students who are parking on public streets, but causing quite chaos for the property owners. And we've had about 3 meetings with the principal there. I've even offered to pay for the parking registration that's needed, but that's not the answer to this. And so I'd like to connect you with Police Commander Monica Martin. I think her next meeting is coming up soon. That could give you a very well-filled class, courtroom, whatever you call it. And so, and the principal there is Justin Edwards. But we have an immediate need right now because I'm told most kids are parking on the street because they don't have that registration. And I hear some don't have licenses, and so this is a problem.
No, that would be great. Michelle has done a great job this last year and a half of going out into the community
Okay.
and talking with folks who could have an interest in teen court. So she's become our ambassador as well.
Well, I will see you, sir, at Eugene McCrae.
Yes, ma'am,
And
Saturday
then I'll go
morning.
to Woodhaven after then.
Are you bringing coffee or am I bringing coffee?
I was going to bring gum.
Okay, good. I'll see you
Okay.
there. Thank you. Thank you all very much. We appreciate the
Thank
opportunity.
you. And next on our list of reports, presentations, we will hear a TPW update from Lauren Preur, who is the interim director of TPW and a beast when it comes to all things streets. Yes, she is.
I appreciate the confidence. Well, again, good afternoon, Mayor Pro Tem and Council. I appreciate this opportunity to discuss our department's accomplishments and progress. So today we'll discuss the fiscal year 23 pavement markings program, the fiscal year 23 streetlight program, as well as a general capital delivery update. We'll start off with pavement markings. So in fiscal year 23, Council has fully funded our pavement marking program, where markings will be repainted every 3 years. So this is our design and implementation plan by fiscal year quarter. So by the end of the year, we'll deliver 2.9 million linear feet with an $8.8 million budget. So plans are great, but let me show you what we've done with your investment. So this is our actual progress in the first quarter. So our team has exceeded our goal of 300,000 linear feet and installed nearly 500,000 linear feet to date. So this is without additional resources coming online. So we have 2 new contracts with a capacity of $10 million coming online this spring. So then we're really gonna start rocking and rolling. So if you thought pavement markings was exciting, you just might be an engineer, but just wait till you hear about our streetlight program. So our 3 funding sources are PAYGO, ARPA, and 2022 bond. So Council once again had the crazy idea to fully fund our PAYGO program. So this means our teams have the funding to respond to each of our over 8,000 work order requests. Previously, we would have run out of funds at about the 6,000 mark. So now we have over $29 million in our streetlight funding. So let's talk about what we've done with this investment in street lighting. So with the PAYGO money, we are in the progress of hiring 3 new crews, and we're expected to be fully staffed by the end of the month. So we've also dedicated $2 million to additional contractor capacity. $1 million for freeway repair, and $1 million for tear-outs. So tear-out is what it sounds like. It's generally related to construction near our streetlights. This is where a contractor who is boring for their own work inadvertently hits our system. We are taking the following measures to prevent this from happening, but also holding contractors accountable when they damage our system. So let's talk about what we've done with your additional PAYGO funding. So I want to highlight that the additional crews and contracts are not online yet and haven't contributed to the success. The transportation management staff has pulled resources from within their division, within their department to achieve this progress. So Fleet Services has also prioritized the rental of bucket trucks and in the interim and secured 11 new trucks to be delivered this spring. This is critical to our success. So since May of 2022, we have gone from over 2,000 open work orders to now just under 600. We're on track to be able to address work orders as they come in within 30 days of our service level agreement by this summer. Only 18% of all of our backlog work orders remain open. So there's been an 82% reduction in backlog work orders completed since May of 2022. So now that I've gotten you excited, let's realign our mutual expectations and goals. So tear-outs. With the current growth of the city, tear-outs are becoming more frequent. These damages are frequently more costly to repair. So tear-outs can be repaired within 30 days from the time of the exact location of the tear-out has been identified. We will achieve this 30-day SLA by June. Knockdowns. So procurement of this material can take anywhere between 60 to 90 days, depending on the type of poles. Decorative poles can have a much longer procurement time frame, anywhere between 60 to 120 days. So arterial and residential knockdowns can be repaired within 90 days, depending on our materials on hand. And freeway knockdowns normally take more than 120 days, but we'll achieve these SLAs by June. So vegetation, this problem obviously escalates in the spring and summer months. High winds and thunderstorms cause additional complications and outages. However, we are currently working to procure a tree trimming contract to address this. So looking at this fiscal year a little closer, only 1% of our work orders consist of complex repairs, and these will also go to our contractors. 88% of repairs have been made within 30 days or less. So freeway lighting is a whole animal in itself, but we are making steady progress. So we'll have 3 separate projects with our $12 million in 2022 bond funds. So the US 287 contract is currently in design, with construction anticipated to begin in fiscal year 25. So our burn rate is reviewed on a quarterly basis. This is done manually by visually inspecting every light in the city of Fort Worth. Approximately 472 light repairs have been made to date on our freeways, increasing our freeway lighting from 42% to 63%. We anticipate the burn rate being over 80% by the end of this fiscal year. And finally, I'd like to mention our $12 million in ARPA funding for conversion of lighting in MMA neighborhoods to LED. So this is our list of programmed projects. We'll be using a unit price contract, and we expect our work to start this April.
Councilmember Flores has the first question, Michael.
Not done yet.
Okay. I'll get you after Carlos, Michael.
Okay. Are we okay to move on to capital delivery?
Yes.
All right. We'll keep this party rolling with capital delivery. So this is our overall progress. We'll cover each of these programs in the following slide. So neighborhood streets. Neighborhood Streets has completed 38 of the 2014 bond projects. The 2018 bond has completed 22 projects, with the final 2 currently under construction. The 2022 bond has over 108 streets. When leveraged with water department projects, we'll actually be delivering over 200 streets. So the neighborhood streets team is setting the bar as usual, with 3 projects going into construction. So the bad news is that out of our 3 projects going to construction, bids are coming in at approximately 35% over budget. So the main reasons for this are inflation, supply chain, and quite frankly, in this area, there are too many projects and not enough contractors. All right, arterials. This is always a hot topic. I feel like Jeopardy up here. All right, and the 2014 bond is substantially complete except for 1 project. So this is McCart-McPherson, which I think we all are aware has had significant right-of-way issues. 3 projects from the 2018 bond finishing design are Avondale Hazlet, with an anticipated construction start date of August 2025. But there is a potential to start the east half about a year earlier based on our current right-of-way acquisition trends. Golden Triangle is anticipated to start construction in March of '24. Cromwell Marine Creek anticipated to start construction this December of 2023. So keep in mind, these projects were all rescoped from intersection only to full corridor improvements. This was essentially restarting the entire project. So the 2022 bond projects are hitting their scheduled milestones and progressing. There have been many lessons learned from the 2018 bond program that are being incorporated into the right-of-way and acquisition phases for the 2022 bond. We're also utilizing alternative delivery, more in the 2022 bond program, in an effort to speed up the delivery of the program. So the CMAR and design build methods are going to allow us to streamline the project due to the contractor's early involvement in the design phase. So they can recommend improvements, recommend cost savings, recommend time savings while we're designing the project. So Cromwell Marine Creek and Ray White are currently finalizing contract negotiations. Everman and Wagley will have an assigned owner's rep on board by this April, with the design builder on board this fall. Mobility infrastructure. Last but not least, our mobility projects are progressing. So the 2022 bond program projects have all entered design at the same time. So this is different from how we approached our 2018 bond program. It was a bit more of a phased approach in the 18. So the 10 2018 projects in design are all working through railroad coordination issues. All right, that's it. Do we have any questions?
This has been a fantastic presentation. I don't know how you guys have turned things around, but David, I'll start with you. This is a whole bunch different than when I first joined the council. And Mr. Johnson, you should be very, very proud. And thank you for such an uplifting report, because if anything makes people very angry, and I could be more graphic, but I won't, it's streets, street lights, repairs, and who does what. And so the speakers I have lined up so far are Councilmember Flores, followed by Councilmember Crane.
Lauren, also echo those sentiments, by Mayor Pro Tem. Done great work, measurable results. Thank you very much. I'm just going to mention a couple of other things that I have not gotten updates for. Maybe you know about it, maybe not, but you can get back to me on it. I had reported, and I know Blue Mound Road's under construction in some segments. Blue Mound Road between Terminal Road and Northeast Loop 820. There were a lot of street lights that were out back in December, and the response I got from staff was that as far as the intersection is concerned, TxDOT manages that. We manage everything else, but I never got follow-up on whether or not those lights were up and running now.
Okay, yes, sir, we'll definitely follow up on that.
Okay, and then the second thing, also in the December timeframe, Old Main Street Bridge, the lights there. There are a lot of outages. Reported it once, they came back on, but they were on during the daytime, and only half of them. So we re-reported it, they looked at it, and it seems has both sides working, but I've seen it from time to time where they're burning in the daytime. There's still some other ones that are out, and I know staff had said that there were some other repairs that needed to be done, but just bringing that to your attention.
Yes, sir.
That's all I have, but again.
And I will leave it to the experts to analyze that. It should be noted that we're actually bringing on board a new senior capital project officer who is coming from the city of Arlington, so.
Okay, terrific. Thank you very much again. Good work.
Councilmember Crane, followed by Councilmember Beck.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. I'll share the sentiments, Lauren. You're doing a great job. I've been throwing a lot at you lately, and so I appreciate you.
I hadn't noticed.
I haven't noticed at all. Can you flip back to the slide you talked about, 287 and the work there? I forget. I tried to get a number, but I didn't see it. Keep going back. It had 2 or 3 projects. Keep further. There. Okay, it was great. You talked about 287, but you skipped over 30 right there from Altamira to downtown. So I wanted you to just tell me a little bit about that project there, because for at least 4 or 5 years, this is mainly Highway 30 right there between basically Como to 820. Those lights have been out, told for years it's TxDOT, it's not us, and then told a year ago, no, it's really us. So can you tell us where that 4.3 million is, what that will look like?
Okay, yes, so all of these projects are capital replacement. So it will require a redesign of the lighting. It'll be a full upgrade. I think as mentioned in one of the bullet points, really what we're looking at is the high mast traditional freeway lighting. It stands a better chance in knockdowns. So with all these projects, they will need to be designed. So I can get you those specific dates on when we anticipate the I-30 project to be designed and constructed.
Yeah, that'd be perfect. And make sure that's also, as they're talking about the redesign of the street, what that might look like, or the highway that COG's doing too. I'd make sure we're having conversations about that. The other thing, if you flip forward a few slides where you had the list of all the neighborhoods, Ridgemar, 211. Can you just tell me a little bit about that too? I get blown up continually by that neighborhood.
Yeah, well, you've got good news for them.
Right.
You know, all of these street lights will be converted from, the current old style to an LED. We will be making sure that the conduits, the actual system is in good shape so that we're not just changing a light bulb, if you will. These projects will require little if no design, but will be done through our unit price contractor. So really, we'll be giving him these project lists. As soon as he completes one, he gets another. So I believe we're going to be starting off with the first 5, but I can certainly get you a better idea of a time frame for specific neighborhoods you're interested in.
I think that'd be great. I think all of us would probably be interested, any that fall in this, like what is a timeline and what does that look like and what's being set as a priority?
Yeah,
Thank
absolutely.
you.
Councilmember Beck, followed by Councilman Jared Williams. Do I see you giving me, okay, then followed by Councilman Chris.
Thank you. I think that we often don't get to go to residents and tell them that we're doing something ahead of time. So this is really, really exciting news to be able to share with them. And I think it's a testament to the work that you and your team are doing. And I know Renee is virtual, but his ears are going to perk up when he hears this. Ron Gonzalez with the city secretary's office actually shared an email with us while we were in this meeting from a woman that had come to visit us from West Virginia. And it says that she felt like our city ran very well. Everywhere she went, the city was clean and she felt safe and people were friendly and our police officers were very helpful and informative and she would be back for a visit. And so much of that is because we're taking care of our streets and that's the first thing people see. And so if they come into the city and they can't tell where to drive or the street lights are out, it doesn't feel safe and welcoming. And so you're not just helping our residents, but you're helping our tourism as well. So good job.
Well, this is a part of the quality of life that we aim to provide.
Make sure she doesn't change her path. She comes in. Councilman Williams.
I'm going to echo the choir here a little bit, but I just want to thank you and the team for not only all of the work that you briefed us on today, but the way that you're also communicating between the council offices and also when we receive concerns related to things like this, that y'all are able to update our residents on that. That's been really helpful for our residents to, get that kind of information so that they know that their concerns have been heard and that, your department's working diligently to address those. And with respect to this, I'm really excited about the neighborhoods in District 6, particularly around the Alta Mesa McCart area. I know my office and Council Member Beck's office have, really been getting a lot of feedback about some of the things that the residents would like to see in our revitalization efforts, and street lighting is one that's really important. So they were really excited to be able to hear that, we were able to allocate funding for projects like these. So all in all, thumbs up, and thank y'all for, the work that y'all do, not only with our office, but with the residents.
Yes, thank you.
Councilmember Nettles.
Yes, a question on the replacement of the lighting. I think you said LED. Is these the lights that when they light up, they look more purple?
Let's talk about purple lights. I
Let's
should have
talk
had a
about-
slide.
Okay.
I don't know why I did
This
it.
is not a question.
So we're talking about what a great job, and you got to bring up purple light.
So I am not an electrical engineer by any means, but as I understand it from our resident experts is, there's only a few manufacturers of LED lights. And one of of our chosen manufacturers, their product is defective. It's not something that they can capture during the quality assurance phase before it leaves the factory. It happens when the filament on the bulb burns out and you get that purple color. The great news is that these are all fully under warranty. The manufacturer is standing by their product. They're replacing every one of them with their own crews at their own cost. So what we've been asking folks is to please report these through the My Fort Worth app. We've seen a great response from that. I think we've gotten over 1,000 requests in. These all go directly to the manufacturer for replacement. So keep those requests coming in.
Thank you. We just want to make sure that those lights do need to be replaced.
Yes,
And
they
so
need
we
to be
do
replaced.
stand by TCU in the purple. But we need to replace those
Can I add
lights.
something to that? This is
Councilman Blaylock.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. I just want to take a moment and echo all the comments that have been made so far. This has just been really fantastic. I really want to reach out and thank you specifically and your team and William for the meeting that y'all participated in District 4, a week ago Saturday. Incredibly well received, incredibly informative. And then the meeting last week with the North Fort Worth Lions. That meeting was incredible and was very informative and well put on. So just thank you very much.
I appreciate those comments. Everything we do is as a team.
And in closing on this, Lauren, I will tell you and this entire council, I have it on very good authority. This was not a defective install that you see that brought the purple lights, but rather a highly skilled TCU alum. That's
embedded in the streetlights team. That might be a good theory to work out.
Yes,
So.
yes. Thank you. I mean, this is the first thing that made me smile all day long. Thank you so much. Next, a presentation on the never-ending saga involving abandoned shopping carts. And that will be Brandon Bennett. You want to show us slides of shopping carts?
This is going to be the quickest presentation ever.
No. Take your time. Take your time. Dig in.
I just need you all to cooperate. Okay. Real quickly, there's a lot of text on our slides, but, you charged us with developing a shopping cart ordinance, something that we did not have before. It's something that we were reluctant to develop over the years. We, as you all understand, saw the stores as both a contributor because they have all these carts to the cart saga, but also a victim because most of the stores didn't want their carts leaving their parking lot because that was a financial loss to them and a loss of use to their customers. So we have come up with various ways over the years to handle shopping carts. Probably one of the most effective one was we had a tool online where people could type where the cart was, an address, and it would tell them who to contact, the store managers for that area. They would call the store managers, and the managers would send somebody out and pick up the cart. That worked great for years, and then about a year and a half ago, that started to fall apart. And probably the pandemic and staffing shortages and other things played a role in that, but most certainly we aren't seeing any improvement in some of the retail chains today. And so we think that bringing you an ordinance that keeps bureaucracy down, that doesn't impact 97 to 99% of the businesses who are doing the right thing. And then lastly, for that 1% who, after repeated requests from us, would be held accountable for not picking up their carts in the neighborhood. So that's what we have for you today. And we understand that carpet carts impact the cleanliness and appearance of a city. We talk about crime prevention through environmental design. It's not just street lights when they don't work, but it's also the cleanliness of a neighborhood and creeks and parks and things like that. The cleaner we keep them, the safer it feels, and actually the safer that it is. Our efforts over the years, again, we've done a number of things, but in developing this ordinance, we also did some work with the retail establishment. I have public health, consumer health underneath code compliance, so we have a good database. We sent out an invite to all of our major, minor, small mom and pops, anybody we thought had a cart, and invited them to come meet with us. We had 7 larger retailers that showed up and met with us. We talked about what we were seeing. We threw out some potential solutions. And from that, we developed an ordinance that we're bringing back to you today. I will tell you that across the board, that all of our retailers, big and small, they all want to do the right thing, right? And they don't want to see a regulation that is too far reaching. And so with that, we have for you today that an ordinance that, again, for the vast majority of retailers, what they're doing, what they did yesterday, what they're doing today, and what they do tomorrow is seamless, that they won't have to make any changes because they're not part of the problem. That the vast majority of them, if a code ranger volunteer, a code blue volunteer, a resident, a code compliance officer, anybody else contacted the store and said, hey, there's a cart out there, they would go get the cart, right? And I'll tell you, these are the same businesses that are going and collecting the carts anyways before you call about the few that you see. So what we came up with was that we would, instead of picking up the carts and taking and disposing of them, because that's what happens right now. If they're pulled out of creeks, if they're picked up by city crews, they generally go to a recycle pile at one of our yards. If they don't show up at the recycle pile, then it goes for recycling. So what we are going to encourage is, or what we're going to do is we're going to contact the businesses, give them 24 hours to retrieve their carts. We'll tell them where the carts are. We're not going to take them to our facility. If they don't do it, then we'll take the carts and we will hold them for 30 days. If they want to retrieve them from the drop-off station, it would cost them $50 to do so. That's a best practice. If you look at ordinance nationally, cities that have grocery cart ordinances, the vast majority of them have a bounty on the cart. That is, the city collects them, and then you have to pay a fee to get them. Sometimes it's a one-time fee, but there's a few cities where it's a one-time fee plus a rental for every day, I guess it's a caretaking fee of like $2 or $3 a day for every day that it sits in the city's coffers. So when you look at an overview of what we're trying to accomplish, the black and white photos, of course, shows polluted waterways. What we're looking for is clean water days, uncut bus stations, clean bus stations, carts, that are all over parks and the right-of-ways, and a city that is not littered with the carts. That's the projected impact of the ordinance. So I think this slide really is the best one to kind of bring everything together on what the ordinance will have in it. And that is, if a cart is found, again, we're encouraging the businesses to go out and collect the carts on their own long before we get involved. But if it is found along a roadway, waterway, or parks, Parks can call them, volunteers can call them, code compliance officers can call the managers, say, hey, you have 24 hours to pick up the cart. Again, most of them, they already do, and they'll continue to do it. After 24 hours, code compliance or other city agency can pick up the cart, take it to a drop-off station, and then the drop-off station will hold that cart for up to 30 days. If they want that cart back, there'd be a $50 fee. When we worked with the retailers, we also worked with the State Retail Association, the big dog. And one of the things that they asked us to do was, there's this wheel lock system that some stores can put on their carts. I will tell you, very few carts that we recover have the wheel lock system. That's how effective it is. But if they do have the wheel lock system, they wanted us to cut them some slack on the $50 fee, and we built that into the ordinance to do it. It's about $20,000 per store to put the wheel locks on, so they've invested the money up front for the few carts we might get, and I don't think we're gonna get even a few, but if we do, they won't get charged that fee to get their carts back. If there's more than 15 abandoned shopping carts picked up within 6 months, a shopping control plan will be required and a citation can be issued. And I will tell you, I don't think we're gonna issue that many citations, and I don't think we're gonna have that many plans. But given between the two, I think we'll end up with a few plans and not a lot of citations. And the reason why I say this for the plans is there's at least a couple of the council members around the table today who has residents that you're hearing from that talk about certain stores that just will not pick up their carts. And sometimes these are carts that are just off their parking lot at the bus station, same side of the street or across the street. It doesn't take that much for the employee to walk across the street and get the cart, or to walk into the, over to the bus stop and pick up the cart. That these are stores that I think, we'll work with them. We'll put them on notice. We'll give them a last chance. But I think there may be one or two of them every once in a while that we have to put into the plan. And that plan could be more aggressive, proactive, picking up the parts on their part. It could be putting in the wheel locks on their carts, so forth and so on. But those are things, it's much like when we do an accord meeting with criminal nuisance properties, that, we sit down, say, this is the problem, and you have an obligation to fix it. So the idea is to, again, put it on their shoulders, not necessarily to be punitive, but to say, this is really, really serious now, you've got to do something with it. And again, when I say 97, it's more like 99%. I just don't think there's gonna be a lot of enforcement with this. I think having this on the books, to be able to sit down with the managers and say, this is what we're gonna hold you accountable to, is gonna get us better compliance. So this is somewhat of a unique approach. We believe it'll become a national best practice, because we're not saying we are going to be the cart police and pick up all your carts and you can come pay us for it. We don't have the staff for it. If you drive around any city yard, you see TPW, water, code compliance, all of us are trying to hire people, right? The last thing that we want to do is enact an ordinance that requires us to do more work, particularly when it's on the part of the business to do the work themselves. We will call them, right? And we'll say, you have 24 hours. And part of the argument sometimes that you all hear is, well, we're a victim, they stole the carts. Well, if somebody steals your car and a police agency recovers your car and says, this is where your car is, if you don't go and recover your car, the police department doesn't deliver it to your house, right? They impound the car. That's what we do with property that's left along right-of-ways and things. So you're still a victim in either case, but you still have an obligation to go get your property in a timely fashion, or it has to be impounded. Same thing with carts. We anticipate a lot of outreach on this. We'll do a lot of education on this. We're gonna really get our volunteers to help us do the reporting and contacting the store managers, and we're really gonna push for those anti-theft locks, the wheel locks on those carts, because those really bring about the best result. So our recommendation for you today is we're still open to any changes from you or any recommendations from you, but the ordinance, we would bring it back to you on the 28th, begin our education to retailers right away, and that the ordinance would go into effect July 1st.
Thank you, Brandon. As Mayor Pro Tem Vivens stepped out, any questions by council members? Ellen?
So Brandon, thank you so much for this. My predecessor's office started working on this quite some time ago, and, you know, I've been following up with it ever since, as has, I believe, Mr. Williams and some of the others. For us, I mean, we think this will be effective in helping reduce a nuisance issue in our city and helping us be cleaner and safer. I do want to mention, at the same meeting Lauren was at week before last, Cody Wittenberg was there and presenting on behalf of your team, because where were you?
Yeah. I was running a trail race, which I didn't win.
Well, anyway, thank you for sending Cody. As he was giving his presentation, he touched on this, and it was by far and away the most popular, most recognized, and most appreciated thing that was discussed with the constituency that day. For whatever it accomplishes there, it's something that our constituents want, at least in my district. So thank you for bringing this forward to conclusion.
Yeah, and thank you. I make sure we give Cody a pat on the back, and this just fits with our Cleaner, Safer City initiative that City Manager Cook got us all excited about this last year, and adding the litter teams and everything else, that nothing distracts, you know, more from a community than these carts laying all over the place.
Michael, I saw your hand. Go ahead. You didn't? Okay. Anyone else? Jared, maybe that was your hand I saw. Okay, sorry.
It was me.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. We're practically twins. That's my brother. Cody, gosh. I'm thinking of this trail run. I'm sorry, forgive me, Brandon. Brandon, thank you for, just all that y'all done on this. I know the first picture was probably because I wrote the actual My Fort Worth requests for those baskets. So needless to say, I've been driving around using the My Fort Worth app for this issue quite a bit. I want to say, I appreciate the plan, and I think, it's right on point with the ability to reduce the amount of shopping carts we're seeing in District 6. So thank you for, all of y'all's hard work, and also for engaging the businesses, because the last thing we want to do is, put an ordinance on the books that just makes it hard for everyone. And so thank you for that. I would also say, as someone who's used the My Fort Worth app quite a bit for this issue, it would be helpful for some of our residents in engaging in this process if maybe we could think of how
Just have a cart.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't want to suggest a button that's y'all's realm of the world, but just something to make it easier to report it, especially because, folks have to pull over to the side of the road in order to report it, and we want to make sure they're safe. I would also say that not only does this address a nuisance issue, it's also a safety issue, and you brought it up. I was driving in the area where those shopping carts were one morning at 5 a.m. to the gym, and it was really dark, and there was a shopping cart in the middle of the road, and had it not been for, the grace of God and me seeing it, I would have had a very huge car repair bill for hitting a shopping cart. So, thank you for all that y'all did on this. It's a really important issue, and I'm excited to see us move this forward.
Thank you.
Okay, anybody else? Doesn't look like it. Brandon, thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. All right, next on our agenda, requests for future agenda items and or reports. Oh, wait a minute, you got something? Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry, David.
Mark and I are going to tag team, and we're going to give a brief update because we want to keep the momentum from the council retreat from February 10th. So I'll let him walk us through a brief recap, and then we'll talk about next steps. Mark.
Good afternoon, Mayor, Pro Tem, Council. I'll be back in a moment, I'm sure, but and Council. So as City Manager said, we've done a little bit of wrap up here and want to give some direction from you all about next steps. We have some suggestions here for you all. This next slide just kind of recaps, the day of the event and what you all did, but really the 4 points at the bottom are what we're requesting as follow-up. So the first action that was listed was bring back some strategic vision priorities for your adoption, and of course, create the process for submitting goals and budget considerations, which is what we want to talk more about today. And obviously incorporate that in our processes and also a reporting system. So this is just a recap of the exercises that you all went with on the SWOT analysis, spent several hours going through each of these and talking more about them and what they meant and what needed to be done to address them. This is a recap of where you all ended up after a very productive day with an overarching vision of quality of life and then strategic priorities of economic development, community investment, community safety, infrastructure and responsible growth and fiscal responsibility. So all of these under the umbrella of quality of life. So these now are to be used for organizing and prioritizing and evaluating goals, which we want to hear from you more about. And then also to achieve efficient allocation of resources as we move through to the budget process for this coming year. Turn over to City Manager Cook now to talk a little bit about the goal setting.
So you remember we were able to, at the end of the day on that Friday, go through an exercise that talked about just identifying an issue and then identifying a goal. And in that brief period of time, we then went around the table and the council members could talk about the issues that came up. We talked about stormwater. We talked about violent crime and youth. We talked about the infrastructure relationship with economic development, small business, food deserts. We think we achieved a lot in a brief period of time, but it just scratched the surface, I think, of working with the council members to walk through and really those top two, issue and then goal. And so if you go to the next slide, our next steps, what we would recommend is staff working with the mayor and each city council member, and I'd say over the next month or two, and going through a little more detailed process individually, and then we'll bring it back collectively, but individually going through what are those issues that you see out there, what are the goals that we're trying to achieve, and what impact might that have on the upcoming budget. And so what we would suggest is us, Mark, staff, working with the manager's office, working individually with the council members over the next couple months, identifying these issues and goals, and then bringing it back probably in the April-May timeframe, because that's still before the budget will be developed, and talk about issue goals and what the impact on the upcoming budget would have for the fiscal year 24. And I think that's the quick summary of it, but we'd be glad to ask any questions. We just want to, again, build on the momentum from the retreat from February 10th and don't let time pass before we can sit down and go through a greater conversation on the issues and the goals.
Councilmember Blaylock.
So this obviously was my first retreat, and I found the whole process to be engaging and rewarding and very thoughtfully done and actually very well done by the group that organized it and presented it. So I just want to thank the process so far has been fantastic. And I look forward to continuing through this process.
Councilmember Williams.
Yeah, I appreciate the approach that y'all laid out for us. I'm looking forward to the one-on-one meetings. I really like the idea of, a meeting with each council member individually to set the goals based on our overall priorities that we have under quality of life. I think that makes sense. I'm eager to see there might be a lot of overlap, between our goals. And of course, there may be some nuanced issues that are geographically specific, but say that to say I like the plan and look forward to meeting with y'all to share District 6 goals.
David, I will tell you, this was the best retreat I've attended yet with the city. And I think Carlos was impressed as well. And just the depth and the, I guess, plain speak. But I've been here since 2013. This was absolutely the best. So bring them back whenever you can. Bring them back for a touch-up. The other people were great, but these people are just outstanding.
All right, you'll be hearing more from us over the next 2 months.
Okay.
Thank you.
And now it's time for future agenda items. I see Councilmember Blaylock.
So I have one item. Recently, the Real Estate Council of Greater Fort Worth presented or made us aware of a study
that they've put together, and it's a report on commercial development in Fort Worth. I'd like a presentation regarding.
That's great. Any other future, Michael?
I'd like an IR overall. The overall, this deals with architectural and engineering services and how we award those contracts. I don't think we've gotten something like this, at least I can think in present recollection. The overall process for selection of the companies that make application, and specifically how selection teams are comprised, or end users a part of that team, or how many end users, what's the typical in that sense. I'd also like, as part of that, over the last 10 years, I guess maybe in a spreadsheet format, of all the projects over $1 million, and as part of that, where is their home office located? And then as part of that, how many of those projects that initially started have gone over budget, and what was that amount it went over budget?
Any others?
Could I clarify that? I believe that's only on horizontal projects, so to be on buildings.
Yes.
not- okay.
Yeah, not roads and streets and other things. Yeah, thank you.
And David, you already have mine from the Development Services team on multifamily
Yes.
stats for the past 10 years. Well, guess what? You have 3 hours to do whatever you want to do. So, work session adjourned. Okay, Elizabeth, don't get it.